October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Why does he do that? By Lundy Bancroft, Inside the Minds of Angry and Controlling Men. In chapter 1 called The Mystery, he gives some examples of what partners of his clients who are the abusers say. See if any of these sound familiar. He's two different people. I feel like I'm living with Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. He doesn't really mean to hurt me, he just loses control. Everyone else thinks he's great. I don't know what it says about me that sets him off. He's fine when he's sober, but when he's drunk, watch out. He scanned me a few times, but he never touches the children. He's a great father. He calls me disgusting names, and then an hour later, he wants sex. I don't get it. He messes up my mind sometimes. The thing is, he really understands me. Why does he do that? These are some of the examples of very, very common things that partners of abusive men say. Here are some shocking statistics in this book. According to US Surgeon General, attacks by male partners are the #1 cause of injury to women between the ages of 15 and 44. And the American Medical Association reports that 1 out of 3 will become a victim of violence by a husband or boyfriend at some point in her life. I do believe that these statistics are not confined to the US. It is most definitely a global trend, and possibly in some parts of the world is even higher than that. 1/3 of all female homicide victims are unalived by partners and ex-partners. I'm just going to share some of the highlighted points in this chapter. There are just too many good things, but I'll just share some of it. So it says here, the abuse of women sends shock waves through the lives of children as well. Children exposed to violence at home show higher rates of school behavior and attention problems, aggression, substance abuse, depression, and many other measures of childhood distress. Also, abuse is the cause of 1/3 of all divorces and 50% of all custody disputes, where the protective mother is trying to protect the children from the abusive father. Another important point is that most of us still think, domestic violence equals physical assaults. That's not necessarily true, because millions of women who have not been physically beaten, they endure other forms of abuse like verbal assaults, humiliation, sexual coercion, psychological abuse, and often accompanied by economic exploitation. Here is one of the most important points I want to say is that the scars from mental cruelty can be as deep and long-lasting as wounds from punches or slaps, but are often not as obvious. And what the victims actually say is that the man's emotional abuse is usually what's causing them the greatest harm, beyond the physical abuse. And this is from women who have experienced both. The differences between the verbally abusive man and the physical batterer are not as great, because it often grows from the same roots. I think the thread of this whole book is it stems from the same thinking, the same mentality of what these abusers have and what they think about women and their entitlement to how they are able to treat them. One of the greatest obstacles in recognizing chronic mistreatment is that most, if not all, abusive men don't seem like abusers. Especially in the early period of a relationship, they'll work hard to charm you. And it says here, he may have a very successful work life and have no problems with drugs or alcohol, or he may not seem like an intimidating person. And therefore, it is so common for a lot of women, a lot of victims, it is unlikely to occur to her that her partner is an abuser, because of this perception that we think of abusers as, blue-collar workers, lower class, uneducated, maybe poor, is not able to speak well. When we think of the soft-spoken professor or whatever, we don't think of them as abusive, but a lot of times it makes abuse hidden in plain sight. The abusive man will try to remain a mystery. There are 5 puzzles here. They are very common. 1, his version of the abuse is worlds apart from hers, and he gives a case study of this example. Number 2, he gets insanely jealous, but in other ways he seems entirely rational. Number 3, he succeeds in getting people to take his side against hers. And in this one, he gives an example of how the abusive man grooms his therapist to have a very negative view of his partner without realizing that he's basically been abusive this whole time. Number 4, during some incidents, he seems to lose control, but certain other controlling behaviors of his appears very calculated. And number 5, sometimes he seems to be really changing, but it tends to vanish. All of these 5 that I've just just read out, he cites actual case studies of his clients, their version, as well as the abuser's partner or ex-partner's version of events. And you can see they are just completely worlds apart. After 30 years of working with thousands of abusers, Lundy Bancroft says that the abusive man wants to be a mystery. To get away with his behavior, to avoid having to face his problem, he needs to convince everyone around him and himself that his behavior makes no sense. So he will be one way to his parents, he'll be one way to his siblings, one way to his colleagues, one way to his friends, acquaintances, neighbors, and then another completely different way in front of his intimate partner. He needs a partner to focus on everything except the real cause of his behavior. To see the abuser as he really is, it is necessary to strip away layer after layer of confusion, mixed messages, and deception. Like anyone else with a serious problem, the abuser works hard to keep their true selves hidden. And part of escaping accountability is he has to convince the victim that they are the cause of his behavior. And one of the common things that they tell their victims is, "Look what you made me do." I'm sure if you are a woman who has ever been in a relationship with an angry and controlling man, this is something that you definitely have heard of before. To close off this chapter, we're going to explore in this book, number 1, how the abuser thinks, which are basically his attitudes and beliefs. Number 2 is his learning process, to which his thinking began to develop early in life. And the third is the rewards that he reaps from controlling his partner, which encourages him to continue to use abusive behavior again and again. So while he tries to remain a mystery, inside his mind, if you understand it, is actually a world of beliefs, perceptions, and responses that seem to fit in a very logical way. And the more the world catches on to how they think, his power will begin to fade away. That's why it's crucial for women to understand how the abusive man thinks, because it will relieve you from the guilt and shame that you probably attached to your abuse, because he has made you think that you were the cause of it and it has never been you. So follow along as I continue to cover this book. Why does he do that?